Being a standalone talent person, which I have been in my past, is very, very difficult, and usually you have to rely on a lot of tools. But that doesn't mean that if you have a team around you that can also help, that tooling isn't something that's really, really important. So a lot of these things will actually make you work faster and better with your team. And I mean, knock on wood that nobody has to do this. Very often it's actually resulted in me having to let go people in my team because there's just not enough administrative work for them to do as well. So not the most ideal outcome for some people, but it is very important, especially if you're in quite a bootstrapped company. Cool, so let's do it. So the way I'm going to structure this is I'm going to go through the 3 different parts of the recruitment story. And I'm going to break it down to 2 bits. Tooling specifically and the things that I use and the things that I like. And then the next part is the data that you should look at and how you're going to learn to make yourself better and improve your process just without the tooling. So I've kind of lumped it under data, but it's kind of more reporting, metrics, considerations. So let's start at the beginning, sourcing. I think everyone can probably say this is generally the most frustrating part of the recruitment process. It also can be the most exciting, reaching out to new people. But in London, in a candidate-driven market, which I'm sure everyone in this room is very, very aware that we're in, it can be an incredibly difficult part of the process. So sourcing candidates, this is my toolkit. So what I try to use is as many pieces of software that make my life easier as possible. So that is simple things like Network Monkey and Connectify, which are paid tooling that helps us get in touch with candidates. But even something simple like social media channels that you might not have considered going on to, like Reddit, Dribble, and Slack. Slack actually has an open website called chitchat.io. We can go on and find any open Slack conversation about almost anything in the world and chat to candidates. One thing that can be difficult for us to do is make a connection with people still about stuff that we have in common. And that's something that's really important to me, is speaking to candidates with more than just the standard, hi, we've got a really great job opportunity for you. And All My Tweets is a great tool for that. So for example, I might reach out to someone that's recently tweeted about speaking at a women's networking conference and saying, we have a really great women's network here. I'd love if you came along and enjoyed some of our time, had a dinner with us, and see how you liked our network. And usually I find that kind of information out through All My Tweets. And then the data I look for when I'm sourcing, lots of this is tied into my ATS. So I always tag every candidate that we have coming into our ATS from the source that I found them, or the different toolkit that I use to get their contact, reach out to them, and what's working and not, so I can report back on that. So I think it's really important that you should always be tagging the sources and feeding back into yourself and iterating on whether or not things are working. No one's spectacularly objective about themselves. Thank God our ATSs can be tagged so that they can be spectacularly objective about ourselves and take us off any non-working paths. Time to hire versus source is also really important. So it's not just the success rate you're having, but how long it's taking for you to engage these candidates. Is it really worth a lead that takes you 7 or 8 months to engage with for a role that you can fill very, very easily, like a graduate, for example? Those kinds of metrics are also really important. Is some of your sourcing channels ineffective and a waste of your time? The quantity of candidates per source, so how many leads you're getting from each source and the quality of them as well. And then the quality of feedback per source. So that's tied into the quantity. So if you're getting 50, 60, 70 candidates from Indeed, but every single person you're interviewing from Indeed is getting a 1 out of 5, is that really a sourcing channel that you should continue exploring? Cool, so recruitment. So this is the next stage. We've moved on, we've got the candidate, we've reached out to them, we've found something interesting, they're engaged, they're interested in the job, and they want to come on site and start hiring, start interviewing for this position. So recruitment is one of the parts of the process that a lot of people seem to think run themselves if you've got your ATS, but there actually is a lot of different things you can do to make a candidate's life much easier and to make the process a lot smoother. So some of the things that I use are Boomerang for email. I don't know if anyone's used that. So it's basically a scheduling tool. Lever, the ATS that I use, which I've already put up there, actually has that built in. It's very, very good, but not every ATS has that. I know lots of places don't actually have ATSs integrated with their workflow. Some people have 3 or 4 different ATS. I know that at Goldman Sachs we actually had 2 different ATSs, and it made it very, very difficult to communicate with candidates. So a lot of things happened offline. So these kinds of tools can kind of build in this functionality when you maybe have no budget or limited budget. Box notes is actually something I use as well. So box notes are very, very good for communicating with other members of the interview team throughout the interview in a real-time way. So very often for assessment centres or graduate recruitment, we'll actually have multiple conversations happening at once. I want to record all of that, but I don't want to have it on a Slack channel. We'll keep that onto a box notes and then attach it into the feedback later on. We find that very useful to kind of collaborate across multiple rooms, multiple processes. Doodle, I don't know if anyone's ever used that, but it's actually a scheduling tool we use. Our team actually uses that very often to figure out when's a good day for us to have a large amount of interviews or a very big interview, so people can organize their own calendars and let me know. And then Google Docs, so we share all of our assessments on Google Docs. What that enables us to do, which is excellent, is if we send out a test that we need to change, or there's a spelling error or some kind of problem in it, or we need to update some data or change some information, we can do that in real time. We don't need to upset the candidate or confuse them with different emails and different versions of tests. And then the data during this process. So I think the most important thing about the recruitment process is making things very, very smooth, very, very easy for the candidate, something that almost feels non-abrasive. So it's not, I mean, interviewing is a nightmare, everyone knows that. It's difficult, you have to get on a bus and slog your way across London, and then you get there and you have to dress up and wear heels, and it's a nightmare, and you've got to do this test and you've never seen this data before, and there's all these new people. It's a very stressful experience for any candidate, so trying to remove any of that tension is really important, and the toolkit that you have is massively detrimental or beneficial to the way that your candidate feels about your recruitment process. So that's why I try to use as many things to enable my hiring team to pick a really good time that works for them and enable the candidate to have a very technologically advanced, smooth process. So during this period, what I'm constantly looking at is how long is this process taking? Is this process dragging? How can I speed it up? Where are the points, the pain points that are taking a very long time? Are candidates getting their test and then needing 3 weeks because the test is too long or the test is difficult to understand? The quality and frequency of feedback, so positive and negative feedback from both the candidate and the hiring team. If the hiring team are getting irritated by the length of time or the quality of feedback or quality of candidates, then there's something broken and we need to fix it. And then of course candidate experience, that's the feedback from the candidate. Again, always checking in that your candidate is happy in the process, always sending surveys at the end of the recruitment process, and we'll go through that in the next bit, which is rejection. So rejection is the worst part of my job, I think, other than the people side of things, which can also be very difficult when there's terminations and those kind of things, but rejection is very difficult. And when I was much younger, actually in my time at Box, I really struggled with rejection, and I hated doing it because I really got along with a lot of the candidates and became quite friendly with them, and then I had to call them and let them know that unfortunately they weren't getting this fantastic opportunity I've been talking to them about for weeks and weeks. So I found a way to kind of turn it into as much of a positive as you possibly can. And some of the things I use to make that process easy, because it is very time heavy, is I don't have there's no logo for snooze functions, but on Lever there is a function called snooze that lets you basically let a candidate go to sleep for a little while and then call them back again later on. So what I do is I'll reject a candidate with one template that says, unfortunately, I haven't got the job, but let me know when's a good time for us to have a chat. We can talk through some feedback. Usually the candidate and I will have a quick conversation, 10, 15 minutes, talking through some of the things that they could do better. Usually what I also do is I have a Google Doc that I run with every hiring manager for just reading lists, things that can improve a candidate in any way, and I copy and paste 5 or 6 of them and send them over to the candidate as well and say, here's some things that might help you on your path to your next role. And then I snooze the candidate for 3-4 months. And then 3-4 months I drop them a line, how's everything going? How have you been? How's your search going? Is there anything else I can help you out with? And the candidates really, really love that, because it means that you haven't just considered them as this transactional person in this process, you're considering them past that fact. Those kinds of interactions are really, really important, and it's important to make sure that you consider rejection as a part of an overall career rather than just as the job you're doing in your particular role right now, because these people will come back to you time and time again. It really is about your network and helping them out. So with things like that, use MailChimp as well. So I send out update emails to candidates I've rejected that I found that were really great quality. Hey, this is letting you know what's going on in the company at the moment. We're doing these new things. If you're interested in any roles, here's a couple of roles we've got available at the moment. If anything's suitable, drop me a line. Keen to talk to you soon. Typeform, always asking them for their feedback, what they thought of the process, allowing them to be very honest, encouraging them to give me positive and negative criticism and constructive feedback. Again, Google Calendar, scheduling calls, scheduling check-ins, looking at people's LinkedIns that I've rejected that I thought were high-quality candidates. And then again, Google Docs, so using lots of templates and things like that, that everything is very smooth and easy to do rather than a complicated time-poor process. And then for rejection, actually, I also look at lots of data. So the time to outcome, the time to let someone know that they're not right for the position. Did we leave them lingering and hanging after their final round? What was their satisfaction? How do they feel after the recruitment process? Would they recommend this role to a friend? Did we get any referrals from these people? And then the future pipeline. So anyone that I reject that I put down as high potential, that is a source for me. So later on in the recruitment process, I can actually report on this is how many people we ended up hiring that we rejected as high potential 6 months to a year ago. And that's happened a handful of times. And then, of course, the most successful and happiest outcome of any recruitment process is the hiring. You've got the person, they've signed the letter of offer, everything's done. And my toolkit there is a little bit more complicated. So I use Lever, which is our ATS I mentioned before, and Lever integrates seamlessly with DocuSign, which enables our candidates to sign in real time on their phones, on their tablets, on their laptops, at their desk, wherever they want to be. I've had candidates sign their letter of offer from their phone on a mountain in the top of Italy, and I've had candidates sign their contracts on the beach. I think having that ease is amazing. Charlie HR also is our HR platform, so sending them lots of information, onboarding, and making them feel really engaged. Again, using these tools seamlessly to try and integrate the whole process. And then using the personalization aspect still, so lots of templates, making a candidate feel like this experience is special just for them. Even though I have 5 or 6 tools shuffling through this workflow, it does actually feel like a very engaged, personable experience. Again, Slack, inviting our candidates that are successful into a few key Slack channels before they join the company has been really important for us. So we actually invite our candidates, after they've signed, their personal email addresses as guests into our general channel. If they've got 2 or 3 months notice, it's actually very good for them to get a little bit culturally involved in what's going on. We'll find a lot of them will come down to the pub, if someone posts pub, everyone in the channel come and hang out. So we're starting to get them engaged from the very beginning. And then I also subscribe to Product Hunt. And Product Hunt is the #1 place that I go to try and make any process easier for myself. And I just basically try 1 or 2 things every week to see how it goes. Think of a pain point I'm having, try and see if there's a product that can make it better. Is it going to be email speed or turnaround or candidate experience or surveys or anything really? I try and get Product Hunt to see how it can make my life easier and more efficient. And then from the hiring perspective, candidate satisfaction, how happy were candidates in this process that they came through? The team metrics, so how well did my team do? And also how well is this team performing after this person's joined the team? How were they performing during an intensive recruitment process? The time to hire and the source to hire, from hire. How many people are passing their probation? We have a 95% probation passing metric, so we have to achieve 95%. And then the feedback quality and average, so how were people being perceived in this process? How was I being perceived in this process? Always asking for feedback, always allowing it to be anonymous, and really, really encouraging people to get back to me and let me know how I can improve. Using tools. Tools make your life so much easier. It can be very difficult to get out of a set mindset when it comes to the tooling you have in your office or tooling you have in your workflow. But if you move yourself into a change, progressive mindset, always looking to improve and find efficiencies, just setting a goal, try a new tool every week, try a new process every week, see how it goes. You will really start finding lots and lots of ways to make things better. You'll see candidate feedback start picking up. You'll see your reporting getting clearer. And then leverage your ATS. And remember that everything you put into that ATS is what you're going to get out of it. So thinking of ways you can tag, source, report, what data you should be looking at. And then finally, always, always, always collecting and analyzing your data. It's the most important part of every single process in any company. Finding ways to make things more efficient, finding which metrics are the metrics you should be looking at are so, so beneficial to you as a recruiter. I know that it feels like you've done the job, it's all good, let's move on, go to the next hire sometimes, but it's really important that you take that time to sit down, be reflective, make a friend with someone in your business intelligence team if you can, or your data analyst team. And they will make your life so much easier. You will start really being able to see which parts of your process are failing you and how to make yourself a better talent manager.